Recently, while digging around landing.love for inspiration, I came across this portfolio and it immediately caught my eye. The animations run all the way through it, but the piece that stuck with me was the scroll-driven footer waiting at the very bottom. You scroll toward it and instead of just appearing, it assembles itself. A pair of hands glide in from both edges, the name swings up from below, and the links get revealed character by character, all in one connected flow. The coolest part is, these hands themselves are rendered as live ASCII and they don't just sit there once they arrive. As you move your cursor around, the two of them lean toward it, drifting in opposite directions for a subtle parallax, and wherever you hover, a little cluster of cells lights up, like the ASCII is reacting to your touch. That whole thing was enough to make me want to pull it apart. So that's exactly what I did. I put together a mini version with the same idea at its core. The hands slide in from the sides, the name and copy stagger up into place, the ASCII leans and ripples under the cursor just like the original, and every bit of it is wired straight to the scroll with GSAP and ScrollTrigger. In this video, I'll take you through the full build, from the markup, into the styling, and finally into the animation logic that ties it all together. If you'd like to grab the source code for this project, along with hundreds of other similar micro projects and a brand new website template every month, you can check out the Pro membership via the link in the description. And if you find my work helpful, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Alright, let's get into the code. Let's start with the markup. First of all, at the top, we'll drop in 3 plain sections. These don't do anything fancy. They're just there to give us some scrollable height before we hit the footer, like stand-ins for the rest of your site. Next, right after them, we'll add an empty div with a class of footer revealer. There's nothing inside it, but it's important. This is the element we'll watch with ScrollTrigger later. When the top of it hits a certain point on screen, that's our cue to fire the footer animation. So it's basically an invisible scroll marker. Then we add the footer itself, which is where everything lives. Later we'll pin it to the screen, so it sits fixed behind the page while the revealer scrolls past. Inside the footer, first we'll add a div with a class of footer images, holding our 2 hands. Each hand sits in its own wrapper with a class of footer hand image, and inside each is an image tag with a class of ASCII hand, one left, one right. Now the key thing, these images are never actually shown. We hide them in the CSS, they're just the source. Later in the JavaScript, we read their pixels and redraw them as ASCII onto a canvas on top. Next, a div with a class of footer content. This holds the text split into 2 parts, a nav with our links, and a footer text div with a short paragraph about the studio. These lift into place once the footer reveals. Then finally, a div with a class of footer header, the big name at the bottom, made of 2 headings, blank and canvas. This is the large text that swings up from below, and that's the whole structure. With the markup down, let's move on to the styling. First of all, we import our font up top and add a quick reset, stripping out default margins and padding, and setting box sizing to border box so everything measures predictably. Then we set that font on the body. Next, the filler sections. We give each one a full screen height so they take up the viewport as we scroll, center their heading, and sit them on a dark background with our orange text. The key detail here is the z-index. We lift the sections up so they sit above the footer, because the footer is going to be pinned behind them. We also hide overflow so nothing spills out. Then the footer revealer. This is just a full screen tall block with nothing visible. It only exists to give us scroll height to track later. Now the footer itself. This is where the pinning happens. We fix it to the top left so it stays locked to the screen while the page scrolls. Give it a full screen size and a dark background and push it to the back with a z-index below the sections. So as you scroll, the sections glide up and over the footer, and the footer just sits there waiting underneath. Overflow is hidden, so the hands sliding in from the edges stay clipped. Next, the hands. The footer images wrapper is stretched to fill the footer, with the 2 hands pushed out to either side and centered vertically. Each hand wrapper takes up a share of the width, and we flag it with will change transform since it's going to be moving around constantly for the parallax. Inside, the actual image is set to fully transparent. Remember, we never show it, it's only the source. And the canvas, which is what you actually see, is layered right on top, stretched to cover the wrapper. Then the footer content, the links and the paragraph. We pin it to the top, span it across the full width, and lay the 2 groups out at opposite ends with some spacing. The links stack vertically, and both the links and the text sit in white, so they read against the dark background. Then finally, the footer header, the big name. We anchor it to the bottom, spread the 2 words to opposite edges, and scale the type up large so it fills the base of the screen. The important bit here is overflow hidden on the headings. That's what masks the characters so they can ride up from below and appear to emerge from behind a hidden edge when they animate in. And to close out, a quick media query. On smaller screens, we stack the content vertically, let the text run full width, and dial the big name down so it still fits. With everything styled and the footer pinned in place, let's move on to the JavaScript and bring it all to life. Now let's get into the JavaScript. First of all, at the top, we bring in everything we need. GSAP to drive the animation, ScrollTrigger so we can tie that animation to the scroll position, split text for breaking our headings and copy apart later, and Lenis for smooth scrolling. Then one quick line to register ScrollTrigger and split text as plugins so GSAP knows about them. Next, we set up Lenis. We create a new instance and then we hook it into GSAP. We tell ScrollTrigger to update whenever Lenis scrolls. We drive Lenis off GSAP sticker and we turn off lag smoothing so the two stay perfectly in sync. The result is smooth, eased scrolling that our animations can hook into cleanly. Then we write a function to split our big heading into characters. We grab the two heading words and for each one we run split text to break it into individual characters, collecting them all into one array. Once they're split, we set every character down out of view, pushed below its line, and since the heading has overflow hidden, they're now hidden, ready to ride up into place when we reveal. Next, a similar function for the content lines. That's our links and the paragraph. Here we split by lines instead of characters, and we use the mask option which wraps each line in its own hidden container. Then we push every line down out of view. So just like the heading, the text is sitting hidden below its mask, waiting to lift up. Then we actually call both functions, splitting the heading into characters and the content into lines, and we hold on to those arrays so we can animate them later. Next, we set up all the constants for the ASCII effect. First, the character ramp, a string running from light to dense, which will map brightness onto, then sizing values for the font, the cell, and how many columns wide our ASCII grid is. After that, our colors, a base color for the characters, a brighter color for the hover highlight, and a dark color for the character sitting on top of a highlight, and finally a few values controlling the hover, how close the cursor needs to be, how big a highlight cluster can grow, and how long a highlight lives before fading. We also note which character in our ramp counts as background, so we can skip empty space later. Then we write a small helper that samples an image's pixels. We draw the source image onto a tiny off-screen canvas, shrunk down to our grid size, and read the raw pixel data back out. So this is how we turn a full photo into a small grid of brightness values we can work with. Next, a function that converts a single pixel into a character. We take its red, green, and blue, weight them into a perceived brightness, and then map that brightness onto our character ramp. So dark areas get the dense characters, and light areas get the sparse ones. Then we bring those two together in a function that builds all the cells for a hand. We figure out how many rows we need based on the image's aspect ratio, sample the pixels, and then walk through every position in the grid. For each one, we work out its character, and if it's just background, we skip it entirely, so we only keep the actual shape of the hand. Everything we keep gets stored as a cell, holding its position, its character, and a slot for tracking its highlight, all in a map keyed by coordinates. Next is the big one, the function that sets up and draws a hand. We build the cells, grab the canvas that sits over this hand, and size it up, scaled by the device pixel ratio, so it stays sharp on high-resolution screens. We set up the drawing context, configure the monospace font, and do a little measuring so we can vertically center each character neatly inside its cell. Then comes the render loop. On every frame we clear the canvas and walk through every cell. If a cell is currently highlighted, we paint a bright background block behind it and draw its character in the dark color. Otherwise, we just draw the character in the base color. Then we ask for the next frame, so this keeps looping, which is what lets the hover highlights appear and fade in real time. Then finally, we kick it all off. We loop over both hand images, create a canvas for each, and drop it into the wrapper. And once the image has actually loaded, we run our setup on it and store the result. So at this point, both hands are being read from their source images, redrawn as live ASCII, and rendering every frame, ready for the hover, and the parallax we'll wire up next. Now let's wire up the interaction, the hover ripple on the hands, and the parallax drift. First of all, the highlight cluster function. This is what creates that little ripple of lit cells whenever you hover. We start at one cell and mark it as highlighted, setting an end time a little way into the future. Then we pick a random number of steps and we go on a little walk outward. At each step, we look at all the neighboring cells around our current one, the 8 cells surrounding it. throw out any that are off the grid or already lit, and from what's left, we pick one at random to jump to. We light that one too, but with a slightly later in time, so it fades a beat after the one before it. That tiny offset is what gives the cluster its rippling, spreading feel rather than everything lighting up and dying at once. We keep walking like this until we run out of steps or run out of fresh neighbors. Next, the hover hand function, which decides which cell the cursor is actually over. We take the mouse position and convert it into grid coordinates, working out which column and row it maps to on this particular hand. Then we walk through every cell and find the one closest to the cursor, and if that closest cell is near enough, within our hover radius, we fire off a highlight cluster starting from it. So as the cursor sweeps across a hand, it keeps finding the nearest cell and sparking off these little ripples. Then we hook that up to the mouse. On every mouse move, we run the hover check against both hands, so whichever hand the cursor is over starts lighting up. Next, we move on to the parallax and we set up its values first. We define how strong the drift can be and how much easing to apply, grab the footer and our two hand wrappers and work out a slight scale up for the hands. Scaling them up a touch is what gives the drift somewhere to move into, so you never see an empty edge peek out as they shift around. Then we set up a few objects to track motion, a pointer, which is where the cursor wants the hands to go, a drift, which is where they actually are right now, and which will chase the pointer smoothly, and a reveal, which holds how far off screen each hand is pushed. Notice the hands start fully off to their sides. The left one pushed left, the right one pushed right. That's their hidden starting position before the reveal. Then, a small function that updates the pointer target. Whenever the cursor moves, we measure where it sits inside the footer from the center outward and turn that into how far the hands should drift. So a cursor on the left pulls one way, a cursor on the right pulls the other. Next, the parallax render loop, and this is the heart of the smooth motion. On every frame, we ease the drift a little closer to the pointer. That's the soft, trailing follow rather than a snap. Then for each hand wrapper, we apply the movement. The two hands drift in opposite directions for that layered, three-dimensional feel, and we combine three things into one transform. The reveal offset that slides them in from the edges, the drift that follows the cursor, and the slight scale up. All of that gets written onto the wrapper, and then we loop again on the next frame. Because both the reveal and the drift live in the same transform, the slide in and the cursor follow blend together seamlessly. Then finally, we hook the parallax up to the mouse as well, so every cursor move updates that pointer target the loop is chasing. So at this point, the hands react to the cursor in two ways at once. The ASCII lights up and ripples wherever you hover, and the whole hand drifts gently as you move. The last piece is tying the reveal itself to the scroll, which we'll do next. First of all, we set up a small stagger config for the heading characters. Each character will start a beat after the one before it, and we run it from the center outward, so the letters spread open from the middle rather than marching in from one side. Next, the animate-in function, which plays everything forward into place. We do three things at once here. First, we bring the reveal values to 0, which slides both hands in from their off-screen positions to where they belong. Then we lift the heading characters up to their resting position, using that center out stagger so the big name blooms open from the middle, and alongside that, we lift the content lines up from behind their masks with a gentle stagger, so the links and the paragraph rise into view. Everything shares a smooth easing that starts fast and settles softly, so it all feels like one connected motion. Then the animate out function, which is basically the reverse for when you scroll back up away from the footer. We push the hands back off to their sides, drop the heading characters back down below their line, and send the content lines back down behind their masks. This one runs quicker and with a sharper easing, so leaving feels snappy rather than drawn out, and the staggers are much tighter, so it all clears away quickly. Then finally, we wire both of these to the scroll with ScrollTrigger pointed at our revealer element from way back in the markup. The first trigger fires the animate in once the top of the revealer reaches the middle of the screen. That's the point where the footer is coming into view, so everything assembles. The second one handles scrolling back up, playing the animate out when you move back above the footer, so it tidily packs itself away, and that's the whole thing. We've gone from a few plain sections and a hidden footer to a scroll-driven reveal with live ASCII hands that lean and ripple under your cursor. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.